Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 117, as England look set to put down a marker against Italy at Twickenham after their surprise loss to Wales in Cardiff 2 weeks ago. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Morning guys, or afternoon when you're listening to this. Welcome back. Another big day, game day again, of course. And I'm joined to discuss it, as always, by Dan. Hi mate.
Hi mate. I've been waiting for this one after losing our last game. You just want the next game to come round, but it's game day and we have got the Italians, the Azzurri at Twickenham.
It's a funny one. For me, the biggest game today is Wales-Scotland. But obviously, it's England. It doesn't matter who they're playing. If someone asked me this morning if you could only watch one match today, which one would it be? And I think ultimately it would be the England game because it's England, but it would be a very close call because I think a lot rides on the game in Edinburgh.
Yes, it does, but it's not the end of the world. The Welsh, to get a Grand Slam, still need to beat the Irish as well. And the Irish, although they're not firing, to beat the Irish is tough. It's hard.
Yeah, and to beat the Scots in Scotland is tough. You know, we failed to do it last year. They failed to do it the year before. So for some reason, Scotland are a different side, and it sounds all cliched, but they genuinely are a different side at home to what they are away. When you look at their home versus away record, they've obviously got a lot of injuries, which doesn't bode well. Obviously, guys, although this is the kind of the preview to the England game, we are recording before that game. That is intentional. We didn't want to kind of sway our views on the England game based on what happens up in Edinburgh, but yeah, that's obviously a big one that's coming and could have a significant impact. You know, if Scotland can do Wales, it's England. I don't see England losing the Six Nations.
I would be very annoyed if we lost one of these next two games because we're at home for them both. That's not trying to be disrespectful to Italy or Scotland, but Scotland have a hell of a lot of injuries. Italy just aren't quite there at the moment. It is a class divide between the sort of quality of teams. So, yeah, if Wales lose even the next two, we have got to be favourites to take that trophy.
Yeah. And that's the mindset that England need to go into these final two games with, is that, somewhere along the line something's gonna fall apart for Wales, and England need to make sure that there's no question following that. We talked about it in our live episode. It wasn't massively popular with everybody, but it was fairly popular with a lot of people, or at least that was my opinion. You were a little more open to the idea that Wales might have been good. I didn't see it that way, obviously, but I think England just need to put that game behind them. They need to recognise that they let themselves down, and they have an opportunity now to fix that. And if they can come out of this Six Nations having made no other major mistakes like they did against Wales, they can look back and go, right, something went horribly wrong, but we put it right, and we move on, because actually it's all about the World Cup this year. And it will just be, one of those things you put down to. It's a bit of a shame, but it's a learning experience. But yes, before we get on to today's game, then, and there have been a few changes that we want to discuss. We have had a few more, a bit more feedback. I think in the last episode we'd only had some negative feedback, so today we get a bit of positive feedback, Dan, which is always nice.
Yay!
So on Twitter, Danny Hawk has said, "Hi guys, I reiterate what your recent reviewers have said." In that this podcast is incredibly underrated, and I'm always excited to see a new episode. I've already rated 5 stars on iTunes, but if there's anywhere else I can review, I'd certainly leave another 5. Also, put me in the fan of the quizzes column, and ignore your new friend John, another one who doesn't quite get it. As for England, the issue we have is not being tactically adept enough to change up when things aren't working. I think it must come from 9 and 10, who both had poor games for us against Wales. I also have to say that I don't share your love of Daly at 15. I don't think he's taken many contested high balls all tournament. Agree, he's awesome on the counter attack. The big man of the moment, though, is Curry. What a find. At times, he's McCaw-esque out there. So excited about him. Keep up the good work, chaps. Looking forward to your next one already, Danny.
Awesome. Great review. I mean, you know what I'm like anyway. When somebody's nice to me, I'd say anything's awesome. But actually, I do think that's a good review. I agree with his point. So the only point I slightly disagree with, but you and I disagree on this anyway. I am still very much in the Elliot Daly at fullback column. You're still yet to be completely convinced, aren't you? You're more on Danny's side along there, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, when you say, I think Elliot Daly is our World Cup fullback as much as anything else, because I think that commitment has been made, and now we need to stand behind the team. So in that respect, I'm completely on board with Elliot Daly. If the high ball, which is probably the one area that there is a potential question mark, if the high ball is the problem area, and I'm not convinced that it is, but if it is, then I would argue that England have a pretty good system, and you know, Johnny May covers the high ball as well. Whoever our other winger is going to be, we'll find that out in due course. But I think between them they can do it, and they have a very good pod system of protecting the player with the high ball, from a high ball. So, yeah, Daly for me is not a concern at fullback. Do I think there are better options? Maybe. I don't know who though. I wouldn't pick Mike Brown, and I think at the moment he's probably the only other person that's contesting that position. So I think Daly's the right man for the job right now. I think the pressure that Daly will be under is going to be if and when Anthony Watson gets back to full fitness. Yeah. And I think it'll be a tough decision for Eddie Jones at that point, because Elliot Daly is a world-class player, and you kind of need him in the team. But I don't know where else you have him now that we're starting to see the rest of the side come together. In the past I've talked about having him in the centres. I can't see that anymore, just because of the options that we already have there. On the wing, there's already so much competition, so I don't know what happens there. But for now, I will stick behind Elliot Daly at 15. I think it's the right call, and we'll sort of take it from there. I would just refer, I think, to one other point that Danny made. He said, the issue we have is not being tactically adept enough to change up when things aren't working. I disagree.
I agree with him on that.
What, you think the team just isn't tactically adept enough to have a plan B? I mean, that's fundamentally how can we say we think England are going to win the World Cup if we don't think they have the ability to adjust when things aren't working?
So I think we have the ability to do it. I don't think we've shown it yet.
But he says we're not. He says we're not adept enough to do it.
Yeah, but I think.
Do you agree or not, Dan? I need you to get off that fence. I need you to pull those splinters out.
But the evidence at the moment would say that we haven't been tactically adept enough.
Wrong.
I think this is learning. I think it's been a learning curve for us. I think against Wales, it's hard to say we are when against Wales we didn't do it.
We didn't, but I stick by what I said in not at the time actually, but in the following episodes. I think it comes down, unfortunately, to Owen Farrell and his decision making, because he failed to release the kind of the players that could do the tactically alternative options, if you like. He as the puppet master in the middle is the one that gets to decide, am I going to kick the ball? And if I am, how am I going to kick it? Is it going to be a grubber through the gap? Is it going to be a short chip over? Is it going to be a long hoof into the air? Is it going to be a kick to space? Whatever it might be. Or am I going to pass it? And you can't use your centres and your wingers, other than as kick chasers, if you don't release the ball out wide, which he didn't do. So I find it difficult to, when looking at the back line, to talk about a lack of tactical kind of creativity from the players if they're not given the ball and therefore the ability to actually try something different.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying every player, but
and our forwards, I thought, were awesome. They won a lot of quick ball. They put in some massive tackles. Defensively, we were massive again. It really does feel like, unfortunately, that 9-10 channel just prevented anything else from really happening in that game. So I don't think as a team, I think on the day, we were tactically... I can't even speak, can't get the words out. But yeah, on the day, it didn't come together because I think two key players were having a bad day.
Well, Danny, I agree with you. And actually, mate, thanks very much for the review. That's awesome.
Yeah. Look, the whole point of these reviews is so that we get to then discuss them. You know, it'd be pretty boring if every time someone wrote something to us, we just said we agree and move on. But we really appreciate you getting in touch. And there are some good points in there that we agree with and some that I don't. But
he's completely spot on with everyone. Tom Curry is absolute legend, right? Like, just that one performance has made him a superstar in my mind.
And he's been putting these performances together, you know, a lot. It's been getting better and better and better. You know, there's no question, I think, over whether or not he's put his name on that shirt. And it brings me back to the point I made, I think, last week or whenever it was, when I was saying, you know, when are we going to see his brother? Because by all accounts, they're very similar players. So
yeah, his brother's a very good player.
If Tom is this good, how good would it be to have two of them?
Yeah. Oh my God, it would be sick. But which is interesting because we look at the change. So, are there more reviews?
Yeah, a couple of other reviews.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's do that before we move on to the team too much.
So we've had one new one, and we've had a repeat or a revision from our old friend Wade.
Awesome.
Wade says, you'll like this one actually, Dan. Wade says, gents, your positivity after the Welsh game was true to the DNA of the podcast. An example, England had all the better players and played better than the Welsh in all areas, yet somehow lost. It takes chutzpah to take that line of reasoning, bravo. I have also come to the conclusion that for all his bluster, Zippy is actually a more objective analyst than you, Andy. He actually acknowledges more England areas of concern. He must have been a great prop as he reads the game so well. Extraordinary. Anyway, despite that, ignore the haters. Welsh windbags always have a chip on their shoulder. They don't understand what you're doing here. Providing a one-eyed and totally biased fanboy pod for Eddie's Army has a place. And you amuse. So continue, touching wood, 4 times a week. No wonder you're blind, Dan. Oh, I see. Continue touching wood. Very clever. Very good. It works.
It's been away.
Yeah.
This has been away.
Yeah. It works somehow. Enjoy Italy, although it will tell us absolutely nothing about England's chances in Japan. And please let the bench fly, Eddie. I want Dan Robson to show the great talent he has. Best, Wade.
So, yeah, I kind of agree with him there. Wade, I know, like, as a podcast, we probably shouldn't do one-on-ones. You mentioned the other day, Wade, about something about OAs. Is that old Albanians? Because if so, we are neighbours, my friend. Not that changes anything, but just thought I'd mention it. But yeah, no, thank you.
Glad you did.
I think it's yeah, I actually think he's got a point. This won't tell us about Japan. This won't tell us about...
No, and he has got a point. You know, you are an experienced prop. I have to disagree with you, Wade. I don't think Dan is more objective. I think he has moments where he just prefers sitting on the fence. That's my opinion. But more importantly, I am 100% unobjective. If England lose, I've got a reason for it, and there's a silver lining. And if they win, of course they win because it's England. That's kind of what we've set out to do, and I'm proud to approach the game in that way. But you're right. It's not a bad idea that at least one of us can be a little bit more objective. So, Zippy, thanks. You continue to do that.
Cheers, Bungle.
Very good. So final review is a new one. Airborne FF is the name he has. He's given us 5 stars. He says, really good podcast. No more quizzes though. There's no. Is that just a full stop? I don't know whether that's a question. It's probably not. He'd probably put a question mark in. I presume he's saying he doesn't like the quizzes. The lineup for Saturday has Manu at outside centre. What do you think of a game plan that involves, as the finishers, Cipriani at 10, then Owen moves to inside centre, then Manu at outside? I think that combo would have worked if we were up against it, like the Wales game.
Right.
I mean, it's basically saying replace Ford with Cipriani, right?
Yeah, I want to see Farrell start at 10. I think Farrell is our starting 10. But I agree with that. I would have been. I mean, I said this afterwards. I said this. I think it may have been last pod even, where I said I wanted to see Cipriani involved, because I think he just, when we are in a position like that where suddenly things aren't just quite working, he can just add that je ne sais quoi.
I don't disagree with you, but I think this goes back to something else that we said, which is that you've got to have exhausted your options before you can start looking at alternatives. So it's all well and good saying Cipriani could have been the answer against Wales when things were going badly, but Ford was on the bench and we didn't try him. Eddie didn't go, something's not working. Let's bring on the guy we have chosen to be the alternative at fly half. He just stuck with it. So I don't think there's any point in saying Cipriani could have been the answer, because Ford may well have been the answer, because I genuinely believe Farrell was having just such a bad day. George Ford is a quality fly half, and I think with George Ford there and the forwards doing what they were doing, creating quick ball, and the backs, we assume, raring to go like they had been in the previous two games, I think that would have turned it too. I think just having Farrell being, just taken off look and being told something's not clicking. I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure it's going to be right by the next game. Something's not clicking. We're gonna give George a go. Would have probably solved the problem too, in my opinion.
Yeah, mate, I think that's a completely fair point, and it's not. So I'm basing my saying Cipriani would do it on past endeavours that he's done. But you're absolutely right. George Ford wasn't given the chance to do it, and he may well have been the answer as well.
And I think that kind of refers us to that comment that Wade made in his last review, where he said, Eddie doesn't trust his replacements, and are they becoming more like subs rather than finishers? And unfortunately, Italy isn't the game to find out, because no doubt he's going to use people because it's Italy, and we are getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I shouldn't have to do it, but I am touching wood, just in case, the kind that the table is made of.
That's where I'm going wrong.
That is where that's why you wear the glasses, Dan.
That's my guess.
But yeah, I would like to see a bit more faith. I'd like to see Eddie put a bit more faith in the players that he selects, and if he doesn't have it, then it's a question of, is Cipriani, a better answer? Because there's no point in saying, you're standing behind George Ford if you don't trust him, you're not prepared to use him.
Yeah. No.
If you're going to make a call that's potentially not a popular one, then you've got to at least back it up.
Yeah.
But three great reviews there, all 5 stars. We really appreciate that. And as I say, we want to hear your opinions. We won't always agree with them. Dan probably will. I won't always agree with them. But it gives us something to discuss, which is great. And that's what we want from you guys, because we want this to be, although it's Dan and I having a conversation, we want it to be a conversation that involves you guys as our regular listeners too. So this is a great way for us to be able to do that. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's get on to this. That backline, I have seen smaller flotillas than that backline. It is
at Gay Pride, wasn't it?
Answer, but I am really excited by it. I don't know if it's the answer to win us the World Cup, but mate,
World Cups are about having different answers to different questions, right? That's why you take a big squad, not just a 23. So I think yes. I agree, Wade. We're not going to find out a huge amount from the Italy game, probably, but we are going to find something out, and that's what effect does having such a big backline, in 12, 13, 14 have on a defence? Does it open gaps up? Because that's what I'm expecting. The Italians have to be looking at this and thinking, yes, our guys can tackle, but you're looking at tackling 3 big, aggressive runners. Cokanasiga, 6'3", 18 stone out on the wing. They've got to be thinking about, defensive pods to cover these guys, right? And when you start doing that, you leave spaces elsewhere. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Johnny May coming around the back and joining that line, almost kind of creating a line that has 3 centres in it with Johnny May on the outside, or having Elliot Daly do the same thing. So there's pace on the outside, there's Farrell on the inside, you've got 3 big boys in the middle. It gives him options to either punch them up through the middle, put a little chip through for May or Daly to chase onto, or even make a little run himself. I think it'll be very interesting to see whether or not that creates gaps in the Italian defence.
I can't see it not, mate. Like I said, that is if I was in the Italian side this week, I'd have been faking hammies like all week long. No, not this weekend. I think I'll sit this one out, boss. Mate, it's prehistoric that back. Like I said, it is literally the Flintstones. It's Fred, Barney, and Bam Bam, and it just. I'm excited. All we need is you and me to play. Then there's also Wilma and Betty. So it would have made the perfect backline. But mate, when you say you want to see them make space, I can't see how they won't.
Well, and I think what's interesting is I don't think this is a blame to put on it. You know, we're getting ahead of ourselves, assuming that it's going to happen. But assuming that it does happen, I don't think you can look at it and go, well, yeah, but it's against Italy, so of course it's going to create gaps because they're adept defenders. Just as any top class team, you know, in any international side has the ability to make their tackles. So I think there is something to learn from this, which is, you know, does it create gaps in defences? We're assuming yes, but we're going to find out today. And if it does, that is in theory something that should translate against better sides.
It was interesting because Martin Williams, he said in a review, he said that he thinks that team can be impactful, but he said the reality is that team, this was his opinion, saying that team couldn't beat New Zealand. You can't outmuscle New Zealand. Well, I think in the Lions, Ben Teo did outmuscle Sonny Bill Williams, is all I'll say. But
true, but I also think this is the point. It's not about saying that's the team and that's the one that's going to work in every situation. It's about having the ability to rotate certain players to last an entire World Cup and to have the best team for the tactics that you're going to employ for the game in front of you. And I think, you know, he's probably right. It's probably not the tactical. It's not going to give you a tactical advantage against a team like New Zealand. Something else probably will. Maybe something more like Manu at 12 and Slade at 13. But it could certainly work against some of the other teams that we're going to come up against. So it's good to have that option, and we need to have seen it. I mean, you know, they need to have been able to analyse it and gone, you know, we planned for it to do X, and it did that, and therefore we know that we can utilise it, you know, in a tactical way. And it may be that someone like a Teo finds himself on the bench, so that becomes an option.
No. I'm on board with you, but to just take away any attempt at analysis, that is going to be fun to watch.
It is.
That is just purely there's something fun about watching big lads run hard.
Yeah, and Slade is on the bench, so you know the option to bring him back in and have a slightly more, I guess by current standards, normal looking back line is there as well. Cokanasiga had a great autumn. It's going to be good to see him back in an England shirt. We know we've got options if it for any reason it doesn't work. Maybe not today, but you know Jack Noel will be back. Daly has played on the wing. Watson's coming back soon, and of course you've got Johnny Mayo on the other side. So and Chris Ashton, of course. So loads of options there. It's going to be great to see. The other changes today: Ellis Genge gets his first start. Not first start for England, but first start in the Six Nations. And obviously, you know, he's another ball carrier, an aggressive player, you know, considered one of the best ball carriers in the Premiership. So, you know, can he translate that to international? And you know, what are we going to see from him today? Lots of people kind of no one willing to really overcommit to what they expect from him because he hasn't had enough of an opportunity kind of come on for small fits and starts. But you know, you talked about it. We had one of our listeners commented saying he thought he was the best prop for England. I'm guessing you're pretty happy to see him getting a start?
Mate, absolutely. And I'm going to make this prediction now. In 2 years' time, that front row starting today will be the England starting front row, game in, game out, and it will be by far the best front row in the world. That is an incredibly talented front row. Genge and the Sink are just, they're really abrasive in your face, but brilliant players as well. The more I watch Sinclair play, the more I'm impressed by that guy. Ellis Genge's been out a bit injured, but I think he's got so much to offer. I think I'm excited by that. I'm really excited by it.
I am too. I think it'll be interesting to see. And I think Ben Moon's had a good Six Nations. He's on the bench. I think it's more of a tactical switch rather than a. I don't think Ben Moon's been dropped to the bench. I think this is seen as an opportunity to try something else out, which I know goes against what we said last week when we were talking about wanting to see kind of much of the same team again. But 5 changes, I'm okay with that. I think Wilson to the bench is definitely not
I think it's give a guy a rest.
And it's Brad Shields has been given his shots to start and play, have a bit more game time. But I think Wilson is England's number 6 right now, without question. And I think he will be against Scotland in a week.
Oh no, I've no doubt he will be. So it's slightly different. Like Tom Curry, don't forget he's only 20. I think Wilson's like 28 or something, isn't he? So the body probably feels it a bit more. So yeah, give him a rest. See what Brad Shields can do. But yeah, if Wilson's fit, he's starting because he truly has been the guy who's sort of come from nowhere and completely owned that jersey, like completely made it his own. And well played, mate, because you've deserved it completely.
Completely.
Absolutely, completely. And before I forget, happy birthday, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate. You had forgotten, but...
No, I messaged you yesterday.
I didn't get it. I don't know what you're talking about.
You replied to it,
did I?
Yeah.
Well,
it was your birthday.
It was very good of you to message me at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what you were doing up so early, but appreciated.
Wait. That's what I'm all about.
Touching wood, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. That's my first touch wood of the day, 6 a.m. Nice. 6 a.m. sharp.
Nice. Fine. So yeah, a few changes, some significant changes. Looking at that back line, it's going to be really exciting to see what they can do. Predictions, and since we haven't seen it yet, and we can kind of respond to this at half time. Predictions for Scotland Wales first.
Wow, prediction for Scotland Wales. So for your birthday, I've got you 2 presents. The first one is Scotland beating Wales, and that'll be by 4 points. And the second one is England beating Italy, which will be by 24 points.
4 and 24. Interesting.
Yeah.
Scotland.
And they're my birthday presents to you, brother.
That's very generous of you, mate. Is it all right if I say I don't want them?
Well, you don't want Scotland to win.
And instead, can I have something a bit more, an actual present? Can I do that? Can I exchange them for their monetary value?
It's too late, mate. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, well, in that case, we'll take it. So Scotland by 4 in Edinburgh, and England against Italy by 24. I think that's probably a good prediction on the Italy game. I think it's going to be a big result. I'd even go higher, maybe. I just have a feeling that England are going to run in a lot of tries.
So what do you think? Wales first.
So Scotland, Wales. I agree, Scotland. I've just got a feeling. I feel like the win against England has given way too many people kind of an overinflated view of how Wales are performing at the moment, and they get caught up in going, oh, it's 12 wins on the bounce, and they just beat England with a passionate display in Cardiff, and it's like, did they though, or did 2 teams come together and just really underperform? And in England's case, it was kind of a bit out of the blue and unexpected because they'd had a strong autumn followed by 2 great Six Nations openers. In Wales's case, it's been a fairly consistent thing where they haven't really, France should have put them to bed. They didn't come back especially strong. France handed them 2 runaway tries, so they should have lost to France. They got away with it. Italy, admittedly, they made a lot of changes, but they only managed to turn that around towards the end. And then the England game, I feel like England let themselves down. So I think Wales might be going in slightly overhyped, and I think Scotland will be the underdogs despite being in Edinburgh. And I think they've got a lot to prove, and they need a big game, and I think they'll do it. And I'm actually gonna say Scotland. I'm feeling something. I'm going to go Scotland by 12.
Scotland by 12, BAs.
That is what I'm going with.
Right, fair enough. I hope you're right. I don't think you will be.
And England by 33.
No, naughty.
But we'll see how the Scotland game panned out. We'll discuss that at half time and see how close we came. Fingers crossed. I mean, there's probably a lot of wishful thinking in that. We obviously would love for Wales to fall flat and end their Grand Slam chances and just make sure that England go into this game almost being able to kind of write off the Wales game and say, okay, the Grand Slam itself is not on the table, but a strong Six Nations victory is.
The only other thing, and a lot of people have shouted for it, myself included, is that Dan Robson starting. Well, I was a little annoyed he wasn't, but then with hindsight, I'm glad that you're giving Youngs and Farrell a start again together. Give them a chance to right the wrongs of
exactly what we said. What we said in the midweek episode, which is that they need that opportunity to say it was a blip, and it was the pair of them working together that didn't quite work in Cardiff. So I think even if you make changes early, bring Robson on, give him Robson 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes even. I think give Youngs and Farrell the opportunity just to sort of show everyone that something wasn't right, but it's been fixed and things are back on track. And I suspect we'll see it. I've got a lot of faith. So guys, we will leave you at that point because we're clearly starting to reach that stage where we're saying words and we don't really know what they mean.
I'm going to go before the games kick off.
Of course you do. So we're going to leave you now, guys, with these anthems, and we hope you enjoy the first half. We'll be back shortly. That's a pretty strong first half. Dan, what did you think?
So two things. Firstly, I'm pretty sure I said we'd be leading by 24 points at half time. And the second thing, before we actually go into the match analysis, you sent a tweet similar to this the other day, but I got to say this. Ian McKinley, for those who don't know, is the Italian substitute who came on who's wearing goggles. The guy lost his eye and he's playing international rugby. Yep. If I lost my eye, I'd be too pussy to make a cup of tea. He's an absolute legend. I just wanted to say that.
It's a fair point. I mean, that's why we had a lot of people. I mean, not just us. It was going around. I think there was a lot of people taking the piss to start with, and then it quickly kind of went around on Twitter and other social media platforms. What this guy's been through, and to have come back and been able to perform at international level, and not to mention that he's also their kicker when called upon. So with depth perception and everything else that goes with eyesight, he's still able to kick at international level with the use of only one eye. It's phenomenal. So a lot of respect for that guy. But obviously today it's about England, and it's a hell of a start. I mean, it's a bonus point within 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good start, and well done. There was, I messaged you after a couple of minutes, but
what's going on?
It was a little loose, wasn't it? Like
it was. I think in some ways, after what happened in Wales, the players, the individuals, they came out. They were so fired up, and what they really wanted to do was just send a message. Like what happened in Cardiff was a blip. This is what we're about, and they got a little bit too. Overexcited, shall we say?
Yeah, exactly. It's like kids on Christmas morning.
But can I just say, had Curry held onto the ball, oh my God, how good would that? It wasn't a try, but that Cokanasiga crossfield kick retrieval with a little flick out the back, it was a bit special. It's certainly one way to put down a marker and send a little message to Eddie Jones to say, hey, you need to seriously be considering me as your permanent other winger.
So here's two things that I think have come to me sort of in that half. Firstly, like say Cognasiga, like he could well be looking at a starting winger position. But also, Manu Tuilagi and we saw this against Welsh as well. When he makes the breaks, when he's in he tends to be in the wider channel, so basically the 13 channel. Do we need to look at him more permanently as a 13? If so, who is for 12? Because I don't think Henry Slade is a 12.
No, could JJ be 12?
I don't think so.
I mean, maybe this is Daly. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure that you do need Mano in the 13 channel. I think he's doing great today, but let's not forget that it is against Italy. But if against Ireland, he was massively kind of destructive from the 12 channel. So I don't think we should get carried away and just say because he's made 2 great breaks punching through gaps and getting away into space from the 13 channel today that means anything. I think this is where this game becomes quite difficult to look at what you learn. I think the things you do learn from it are things like at the end of that half there, Italy making another attack. England's defence needed to stand strong and deny it, and they succeeded. There
has been some poor defence.
I was going to say, speaking of which, defence has been a massively strong part of England's game over this championship. Even against Wales, what's happened today? Why is it slightly looser today?
Like you say, it may just be a bit overexcitement. It may be a bit that they're not as committed to the defence. Like everyone knows who plays rugby, defence, a large part of defence is mental. Like, yes, you have all the systems in place, you have all that.
Dan, that's what you tell yourself so that you don't have to make tackles. Because you're like, no, guys, I'm doing the mental bit.
Yeah, I'm doing the mental strategizing.
But you make the hits, I'll do the mental bit. That way, we're all doing everything.
And that's what's going on. They've just got too many people doing the mental strategy.
Okay. Is it that they're just being a little bit? They're obviously doing the rush defence. It's a bit of a signature defence for a lot of teams now, but particularly for England. Are they getting a little bit over? A bit like we keep saying, kind of overexcited, and they're kind of overcommitting, and so gaps are being created. And I imagine this is something that Conor O'Shea will have worked on with the Italians. Are they managing to pull off some of what the strategy they kind of came into this game with? They're managing to pull some of that off because England are so committed.
Yeah, they're not managing. I don't mean you can say they're managing to pull it off when you're 24 points down at half time. I just think the England defence is just gone to sleep a bit. There's not the need for them to be so switched on.
Okay, so another question for you: what do you think Owen Farrell just decided that the guys just needed a bit of a rest when he decided to take the 3?
No, I liked that decision. I liked that decision. I'll tell you why. Because firstly, it changes it from 2 scores to 3 scores.
Right.
And secondly, I still want there to be something we said in the week. We still want it to be
treated like a proper. Yeah, well, it is a proper test match, but like a really competitive, potentially close game. But that's very difficult to do in a game like this where you've got such a big lead so early on.
Yeah, of course it is. And I don't think you'll see much of that again. Like, they'll probably swan down. But yeah, you're right. It could just be Owen Farrell could just be like, right, okay, we're here. That's fine. It's such an easy 3 point.
Yeah.
We'll take it. We'll reset. We'll go back.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I just, it did seem a little bit like, if you're 1 try up, 10 points up maybe, even though you feel like the game's well in hand and you have total confidence that you're going to stretch that lead, I get it. You take the points, you're building the lead, you're treating it like the kind of game that it is. When you're like 30 points up or 20 points up, whatever, and it's so you kind of run away with it already. Is it almost taking the piss to do it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard. England have to play their own game.
Okay. Look, before we kind of head off, there was something that was mentioned in commentary. Some of you will have heard it. I'm sure a lot of people will have kind of slipped by. But I found it quite interesting. 99% ruck completion. That's England's average. Yeah. I don't know if that's standard for most teams. Obviously not being a forward, but an average of 3 seconds to recycle the ball. 1, 2, 3 recycled. I mean, that's an average. No wonder they're playing so quick. I mean, that's
the fine 3 seconds.
I want people to feel how short amount of time that is. Plus, you can't count.
I can't count, but I've actually made it up to 4 now. So
well done.
So my problem, that seems incredibly impressive. I don't know what the norm is, though.
Well, no, I don't either. But that's kind of why I needed to say it out loud, just to.
Yeah.
And it's more that's the average. There's going to be quick ones and slow ones, but if your average is 3 seconds, that's a really strong stat. I feel like
it does seem it, doesn't it? Like 99% of 3 seconds. That does seem very that does.
And England are playing fast today, and Faz and oh god, who's playing 9? Blank. Ben Youngs. Blank. Faz and Ben Youngs have clear. I know it's against Italy, and people will say, yeah, but what can you really learn from it? But just the rugby brains seem switched back on again.
Wow, Ben Youngs pissed me off when he tried to do the one-handed pass inside, because you saw Cognasiga go, put it one-handed into him, and Ben Youngs tried to throw it one-handed to Johnny May.
Yeah.
And it was just like, mate, you would never normally do that. If you just pass normally, that is a try so easily.
Yeah, that's what Cognasiga does, because his hands are 4 times the size of yours.
yeah, exactly. And speaking of stats, did you hear Tio Tuilagi and Cognasiga are bigger, like weight-wise, than Wilder, Fury, and
Joshua.
Yeah, that's insane.
That is insane. I mean, it's a great, insane issue to have, I think, for England at the moment. I do. My one concern is, and we'll talk about the Wales results at the end of the match, but and obviously Scotland weren't that strong. But my one concern is, what do you take from this game in terms of going into what is going to be a very important final game of the Six Nations?
I don't know, but what do you need to take from it? I mean, it's there for everyone.
Well, I guess just because it's such a different game in terms of the strategy. You get to the Scotland game, and on the one hand, Scotland have been pretty weak even at home, and they're even weaker typically away. So do you look to implement something similar again and just try and overwhelm them, or do you have to sort of go take a backwards? I don't. It's anyway. We can discuss it later, but it's and certainly in the midweek, of course. But I'm just enjoying watching England running in the tries. It's just a nice little kind of response to a poor result in Cardiff.
It's not a stressful afternoon.
It's not. I'm very calm. Very calm this afternoon.
Or things like that, it can be a bit stressful. But one thing so when you put like Joe Cognasiga in the pack and you have Billy come on, it's like, if you have 3 tankers in the back,
why do you
probably
need
don't need Billy outside. Like,
why not just have Joe Cognasiga be the guy that's running onto that ball?
Exactly.
It's a bit obvious. Oh look, they've put someone else in the pack and Billy's hanging in the line. I wonder where the ball's going.
Yeah, it might be a bit gimmicky. I don't know, but it was.
If anything, I mean, the only thing I'm wondering is whether they just got it completely wrong and Billy was meant to be a decoy. Because obviously you do that, obviously the opposition's going to assume you're giving the ball to Billy Vunipola at pace. But actually, if you just do all that and then you decoy it, you've probably sucked in a couple of people. And the way that he kind of stuttered slightly before he got the ball, I wonder whether there was a bit of confusion. Maybe Ben Youngs either had a moment where he forgot what they were doing, or something went wrong, and actually he ended up getting the ball. And commentary was kind of like, "Oh yeah, that was quite good," but it was just like you say, a bit like random. Whereas as a decoy, it might have been quite an interesting little move.
It could have been, but again.
Silver linings, Dan. That's just how I roll. That's my explanation for it.
Fair enough.
Right. Well, let's get back to it. I want to see in fact, before we do, what do we want to see in this second half?
Much the same.
Do we want to see this?
Tidy up the loose ends. Tidy up a bit of the a bit of the champagne stuff that's not necessary. I mean, play champagne rugby if you're that sort of player. If you're Cognasiga, if you're Ben Youngs,
play your game.
Don't. Yeah, play your game. So if we just tighten up stuff, tighten up the fence a bit, and 4 more tries.
50
so yeah, maybe like I said we'd be winning by 24 at half time.
I mean, if you take that statement and remove the at half time bit, you were spot on. As long as England don't score again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You never know.
But I said 33, and I'm feeling like that might be a little shy.
You might be.
But we shall see. Italy are gonna look at this game now as a 0-0 going into the first half, and it's not about the result at the end of the match. It's about how do they perform in the second half. They're going to look to score tries again. I don't think
they need to stop doing that. They can't live their international rugby careers. It's 0-0. What happened first half doesn't matter. Yeah, it does, because ultimately the result matters.
Of course it does. But what do you do if you're Italy then? Do you just say, well, we've lost this one, lads, give it up?
You have to pretend it's 0-0.
we had this discussion. One of our listeners commented on this, Dan. You're not allowed to keep doing this. Stop drinking half a beer before we do the pods. You're clearly drunk. Let's get back to it, guys. Enjoy the second half. We'll be back to discuss it, and we'll have a chat about the Wales-Scotland game at that point as well. And then we will look forward to the final weekend. But we will catch you guys in about 40 minutes. Well, that's it, the final whistle, guys, and a pretty convincing result, Dan.
Yeah, on the day of, it's the birthday of one of England's greatest ever historical figures, Sir Martin Johnson. And I think it was a fitting tribute.
Thought you were going to go with me there.
No, I'm afraid not. Happy birthday, Jono. It was good.
Biggest scoreline, 57-14. Biggest, most points scored by England against Italy in 8 years. So,
right.
I don't think it means a huge amount, because I think Italy have really struggled recently. But you've got to look at all the other games they've played in this Six Nations, and no one's come close to causing them that much of an issue. So maybe that's how we look at this and say, put Wales to one side. Wales even managed only to score 2 tries against them.
Yeah, it's
or three tries against them maybe, but couldn't get the bonus point. Ireland beat them, but Italy were leading at half time. They've obviously got France next week.
Massively but that could be interesting. Italy massively are a different prospect in Italy. Yeah. It shouldn't be as much as it is, but that Italian team, when they were out there, they couldn't live with England. England were too good. So rather than, because we're going to do an episode next week where we'll probably go over the match a bit more, so necessarily rather than going over what we did do well, is there anything you would have changed today?
I think the big question and the big change for me is I don't think that both Manu and Tio is the right call in the centres. And you can't lose Manu. So I think you bring Slade back in for Tio, and actually Farrell, Tuilagi, Slade, Cokanasiga is a really nice kind of mix of not power versus gameplay, because we saw today that both Cokanasiga and Manu were great on their feet, and we know Ben Tio is too. But it's just that balance. I think that's probably the better call. But it's hard to argue with 8 tries.
It is hard to argue with 8 tries, but I'm inclined to agree. I think you stick with Slade, Manu. Cokanasiga to me has probably earned himself a starting place next week.
You can't have man of the match and then not get considered for a start, especially when the other. Because I would say that Jack Nowell is probably the most likely alternative, right? And he's still injured. Yeah. I don't know if he's due to still be injured next week, but I think regardless, I feel like Cokanasiga, because of the performance he's put in, probably needs to start, and maybe you have Jack Nowell on the bench if he's fit again, in case you need to change things up. But that's a good problem to have, isn't it? Having to consider not selecting Jack Nowell.
Yeah, Jesus Christ! That's a hell of a problem to have. But Jack Nowell's world class. Did Dan Robson get enough game time?
No.
No, I agree.
Based on the fact that as Lawrence Delalio was saying after the game, it was 1 at half time. So why not give him a full half? However, I thought he looked decent when he did come on.
Yeah,
20 minutes under normal circumstances is about what you'd expect for your bench replacement. I think he needed to be given more because it was a viable option to do it. And when you were making kind of wholesale changes anyway, why was he not one of those? Like, you gave a lot of the other finishers 30 minutes. Why not give Dan Robson the same? It didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was nice.
He would have been the first one substituted on. It's what I was expecting.
But great that he did come on and he did score a try. So 2 tests and he's got his first try already. So that's all, nice little consolation there, I suppose. But yeah, a bit bizarre. It was good to hear Eddie after the game, kind of accepting a certain amount of responsibility for the Wales result, in so much as he said, we should have. We could have and we should have used our finishers better, and that's on me. I like that. I do too, and it's right. And I know some people will argue he's just trying to kind of put out the fire or whatever and take responsibility off the shoulders of the players. But I stick with what we've been saying for the last week or so, which is that unfortunately the halfbacks had a very poor game against Wales, and that didn't help. And I was glad to see that when he did make the changes today and brought Ford on, whilst Farrell I thought had a great game today, it was for Farrell, straight swap. Because there was no need for Owen Farrell to stay on today.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's important as well to, instead of looking at him just as a finisher, he's also the replacement. If something was to happen to Owen Farrell, George Ford needs to be in a position to be able to come on and take and kind of assume that role. And so you need to see him playing without Farrell kind of next to him, calling the shots from 12. I was glad to see that they did that, and it's a shame actually that he didn't do that against Wales, because I think that was probably what was needed. That's not to say that Ford obviously didn't help himself with that awful long 3-man miss pass straight into the hands of the Italian prop, but it just
that was an ambitious pass.
It was. Much like the Jamie George one that did result in a try.
George is awesome. When I saw that pass, I was like, "Oh, great pass!" I wasn't really paying attention to who made it. I just assumed it was Farrell or someone. Then when I saw Jamie George, I was like, "Oi, fatty, what are you doing? Stop it!" And then I was like, "Oh, okay, don't worry, that's fine."
Very good.
It's
go on.
Yeah, sorry. So just to slightly expand on that fly half thing, if and again I'm playing like
Devil's
the realms of not likely, but if say for example Farrell got injured during the week and he can play, is Danny Cipriani the next call up?
I think so.
I think so. I'm trying to think who else.
Yeah. I mean, there's no out and out fly half that we're aware of that's being seriously.
He likes Marcus Smith.
He does, but I think he's made it quite clear that he sees Marcus Smith as a future England star and not a current one. Just in the way that he's only ever selected him as an apprentice player. So I don't think Marcus Smith gets the call. I think under those circumstances, it has to be Cipriani. The only possible alternative is that he goes with Slade at fly half, because he has talked about Slade being a fly half option.
Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen. I think we are massively going into the realms of the unlikely. But,
yeah. I think he's made it pretty clear what he wants, and that is the Farrell Ford for the time being. And as Johnny Wilkinson said, Ford needs to accept it for now, but not accept it for the future, because he's got to keep. Even though I don't see him changing anything in that respect, I think injuries aside, Farrell is going to be the man. He is world class, and he's a vital part of the England setup. And when he's going well, the team's going well. But so many players showed today that it is a team effort. And as a 23, we I know it was Italy, and I know they were poor.
They were poor,
and there were moments when it was frustrating to see England, maybe the defence seemingly not as kind of on point as it has been in the past. But I think in a game like that, there's no team in the world that's gonna start a game the way that England take out the first 5 minutes, but the way that England started that game and maintain that intensity for the full 80 not because they're not capable of maintaining that intensity for 80 minutes,
because
but I think when
not a threat.
when the scoreline is like that, you're not under enough pressure to be able to do it. So get under the circumstances, to maintain enough pressure to put on another 4 tries, make it a 50 or nearly a 50-point win, 57 points scored. One more try, and they weren't a million miles away from it at the end there. It would have been a 50-point win.
3-point win, yeah. 43-point win, so yeah, not far away at all. All right.
Pretty much exactly what I said when I said 33 points.
Well, no, not quite. I mean, mathematically, that's completely incorrect. But okay,
but semantics, mate. Semantics.
Semantics. Johnny Wilkinson. Everything that guy does and says is perfect. That's it.
I think it's time to get behind a new hero.
No,
could that be Joe Coconasiga or Fuckanasiga or however it is that his name is correctly pronounced? I've heard a few variations today.
Oh, okay. He looked good. Rightly man of the match.
That was my next question. Over Manu? Because there was a little incident. I don't know if you saw it. Not incident, but there was a little kind of snapshot of them all celebrating afterwards. And he appeared to take his man of the match medal off and try and give it to Manu. So I don't know whether the player's man of the match would have been Manu. And they did say in commentary that, hard to look past 2 tries and the performance that he put in, but actually he's not man of the match. The man of the match goes to Joe Coconasiga. Do you definitely think that was the right call?
That is a fair point. I think either one of them equally is deserving.
Yeah. And the fact that he was questioned, why do you only use one hand? And his response was, it's easier.
Yeah. No, it's not, Joe. That's 2 beats 1. But for you, if that works, amazing. I'm not looking for you to change anything right now, Joe. But
ironically, he then did tell Martin Bayfield that they want to take the Scotland game with both hands. So you can imagine Bayfield's response.
That's quite good. If he meant to do that, that would have been funny.
Yeah, he didn't, obviously.
Obviously.
England against Scotland. So something I didn't realise, and not that it's a particularly exciting piece of news, but England against Scotland is the last game next weekend.
Yes,
so we will know exactly what the way that things, the lay of the land. Obviously before kickoff, which I think is great because as Eddie said, England can't control what happens in the other games. We can hope that Ireland do a job on Wales. Obviously, assuming that it doesn't really matter, but we're assuming they'll probably do a job on France tomorrow. But we can hope that they do a job against Wales next weekend. And if they do, England obviously have a very good chance of winning the Six Nations. But they obviously still got to go out and do a job against Scotland. Scotland are going to Scotland still haven't had. We've talked a lot about Scotland are due a win, they're due a big game, they're due a big performance. We obviously didn't talk about it at half time. The game today, the Scotland-Wales game today, it started off, it looked like it was going to be an absolute rout. Wales started to run away with it. Second half, Scotland came back very strong. I thought Wales had a good 20, 30 minutes in that first half. And once again, they were pretty average in the second half. And Scotland, I thought were right in it. They had their chances, but for the fact that they were just worse again. So Wales have had another win, and I know that people will say you can't argue with the results, and the results are the most important thing. And bottom line, they are, and especially in a World Cup, a win's a win. But you've got to start to worry, haven't you? If you can't win good, I know that back during England's win streak, we talked a lot about winning ugly, but it wasn't like it happened every game. It was about the off games, making sure you still win the off games, not getting lucky in finding opposition that just don't turn up week in, week out.
I think Jeremy Guscott made a really good point, which typically was negative, but that's him for you. But Wales are not. They're not that threatening in attack. Defensively, yes, they're brilliant, but they're not that threatening in attack. In my mind, you can't win a World Cup without having strong attack. But either way, I'm going to skip the Wales thing because I'm sick of them. But Scotland will be a different prospect, but this one's going to have some bite to it. Do you remember last year there was a bit of a fracas?
Punch up in the tunnel before the game.
Yeah, so England are going to want this, as are Scotland. So next week could be England-Scotland. Next week could be it could certainly be a physical game.
I think it's going to be a great test match. I don't see Scotland. I think their injuries and their form at the moment, it all kind of is compounded into there's just something missing right now. And the injuries have been a big deal. And they lost another, 4 or 5 big injuries today. At one point they had to have 2 scrum halves on the pitch. Not at one point, they had to finish the game that way. It's a worry for them, right?
Scotland, stop being such pussies. Stop eating battered Mars bars and maybe have some veg or something. Build, some calcium. Let's build these bones up.
Build the bones up. Eat some spinach.
Worry. Yeah.
I just think England learnt a lesson in Cardiff, and it's a lesson I don't think they're going to immediately forget. And I feel like today, whilst obviously we're not going to do that against Scotland, I feel like today is far more of a kind of reminder to themselves and to the fans that this is a really quality side that's a serious threat for the World Cup, and but for some but for something that like no one seems to be able to put their fingers on against Cardiff, England should really be going into this final game, as not just the Grand Slam. Not with just a Grand Slam chance, but with a comfortable, realistic chance of doing it, just because of the performances that they've put in. They're not in that position, and that's of their own making. Don't get me wrong, but England didn't deserve to win against Wales. That's the bottom line. But that was, as I say, of their own making, and I think they're going to kick themselves. But I feel like a big performance is coming again next week. And it's going to put them in a really good position heading into what will be, I think there's 2 more competitive games. Not competitive, they're all going to be competitive. There's 2 more test matches, I think.
There's 3 out there. There's 3 afterwards.
Well, they've got a Barbars game, which I'm going to,
and then I think
taking the missus. Then they've got Wales, they've got Ireland. Maybe you're right, maybe they've got France as well in warm-up matches. But our warm-up matches, but warm-up matches aren't test matches, are they? Because I think there's summer tests. I think I can't remember how it works. We need to check. We'll check for the midweek episodes and confirm exactly what the rest of the schedule looks like. I've got a feeling that the warm up matches don't count as test matches, but there are 2 more test matches before the World Cup. So maybe they have like a miniature summer tour or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We will confirm it and we will come back to you guys. And to make sure we're getting that correct. But look, bottom line, not just a win, but a massive win, massive response to the game in Cardiff. Like they said, you can't control the other games. You can only do what you can do. And if they won big today, if they won big against Ireland, they won big against France. We forget about Wales. They won big against Italy. If they can win big against Scotland next week, I think you've been mad as any other nation not to be going, this is a team to be concerned about.
Yes, it completely. And I'll tell you what, we have got Elliot Daly looked good today, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He just looks so comfortable moving as a human being.
Yeah, and I think the kind of the high ball concerns seem to be negated because he doesn't tend to find himself underneath many of them. So whether or not he is good under the high ball is almost irrelevant because England seem to have a game plan that ensures that Johnny May tends to find himself underneath most of them, and he's great under the high ball. So, I thought he looked good at that.
He looks like he shouldn't be. He looks like he's going to drop every ball, but he never does.
Well, that is the specialness of Johnny May.
That is just
no one will ever know why. He's a special man, but he looked sharp again today. They all did. It was a great opportunity for 23 guys to go out there and just say, we've got some responding to do, and they responded with strength. I liked it. I had a lot of fun watching. And as we said at half time, it was a nice chilled afternoon. It wasn't. I haven't come away just stressed. which is the Ireland game was certainly like that, and the Wales game in particular with the results. So yeah, it was nice to watch. Good to see them back in winning form, and yeah, high expectations for next weekend.
Yes, and we're still in with a shout for winning the Six Nations. So guys, let's get behind the boys. You should be touching wood all week. I know I will be, and let's beat the Scottish.
You're so weird. Guys, get in touch with us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought about the game today. Let us know if there's anything that you think England might have learnt from it that we haven't mentioned. We've obviously said it's a difficult one to take to learn lessons from. But Eddie, obviously after the game, he was said, Eddie. I think they said, Eddie, you must be really happy, and he went, well, obviously we won, but we left a lot out there, which is awesome. I'd like to see what exactly you left out there. I don't disagree with you, by the way, but yeah, I'd like to see what we left out there. Maybe show us against Scotland, because yeah, if you're leaving things on the pitch after sticking 57 points on the opposition, clearly expectations are high. Which
you're
is
doing
great.
it right, yeah.
But yeah, guys, let us know if you think there's anything that's worth highlighting from that game. Let us know what you think about the centre combination and what you'd like to see. And you can email us englandrugbypod@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us on Facebook and Twitter @englandrugbypod. And of course, as we always say, if you like what you hear, head over to iTunes, drop us a rating, drop us a review. It takes 5 minutes, and it's really useful for us just to, one, get an idea about what people think about the direction we're taking this in, and two, just to get that visibility to try and get more of you guys listening before the World Cup, because that's what this is all about. But thanks so much for joining us again for one of our live-ish episodes. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next week.